Hello YouTubers and welcome to another episode of the vlogs. Today, as you can tell from the title, we're talking about heart rate training, do's and don'ts. I'm going to ask some of the guys about that, and we're doing a step test today as well, which can or will give us guidelines as to where we're supposed to be training. And I'll talk about what the step test actually is or what it includes. But first things first, as always, we have to get changed, warmed up, and like I said in yesterday's video, we're going to make another video about warming up, stretching and whatnot as well. But let's get into the gym. And we've made it into the crew room for breakfast. Unfortunately, the step test ran a bit late, so I've got all my friends sitting with me today. But we've got a fuel up after a session like that, and we'll talk about it a bit later when the guys are back. Oh yeah! And I've gained some friends after fueling up. Oh yeah, we've got Mr. Richard, Mr. Edward, Mr. Bally over there, and Mr. James as well, to discuss a little bit about heart rate training. We've been having a discussion over the past week or so about heart rate training, whether you should only stick to your heart rate, whether you should go for only a split. But we'll start with Richard. Richard, what's your opinion on heart rate training?
I've never, excuse me, I've never done it personally. I've always gone on how I feel, and if you're feeling good, try a bit harder. If you're not, try a bit less.
So you'd say a level of perceived exertion is what you go on, yes. Edward?
I think it's good for people who maybe don't have someone telling them what split to do. You can be in like a range, potentially, for your UT2 or whatever your steady state ergos are, to be between like whatever 150 or 165. But I think if you have a good idea, like a lot of basic training, you know whereabouts you want to sit on the split, and it's not going to change like that much week to week. You find what you can do every session and then like push on with that rather than using heart rate.
So you recommend getting that gauge first?
Yeah.
And then experience.
But obviously not everyone can have that
yeah.
like sort of testing to see that they can do that.
Like what we did today,
yeah,
lactate. And Stanhope, what do you think?
I don't really know. I'm undecided. I've been for the last few years, I just pull a split, and then each week you kind of pull a bit harder, until you feel absolute baggage after it, and then you just go back a little bit and go forward again next week, if that makes sense. But I guess it's working, I think. Usually I haven't really used heart rate ever, and I don't think I would. I think putting the split you want to pull, making that slightly better each week or each month is the best way to go.
Like, we've gone that hard that if I'd seen my heart rate at like 180 or whatever, I'd scare myself and think, oh god, I need to back off. But actually, like, physically I'm able to do the work. But that's not a UT2. Yeah. But it's still like a steady enough heart rate. I'm not going like just climbing all the time. It's still sort of steady state. I wouldn't be able to do something that hard for that long without it being some sort of steady state. Yeah. If that makes sense.
But then you pull that split and then next week it's easier.
Yeah.
Although in 2 weeks time.
But what if it doesn't become easier? What if it just becomes the same slog?
At some point surely it will become easier.
Yeah.
If you keep putting the same split every week, say let's say 149, if you pull 149, I've been trying to go sub 150 this year since I came back from operation. And each time I've been doing it, it's been getting easier and easier and easier and easier. To the point now where you're like, oh, I can do that now. I'm going to go for sub 149.5 instead. And now whichever you go, 149.4, 149.4. And then, so for me, it does get easier.
Yeah.
And I guess your heart rate will plateau at that split. So like the first one you might do, it might be a bit harder. You go, heart rate, your average might be like 170. And then the next one, next week will be 165 or 168, and keep going down. So then you, once you've once your heart rate is stabilised at that split, I guess you then go, all right, I'm gonna.
I think it also like heart rate is dependent on more than just the training load. Like you could have a really high heart rate if you're really dehydrated. Like you have to
Or just in general,
that's a massive problem with heart rate.
Like,
what is your UT2 or what is your?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you were like in peak shape and then you did a test or like tested yourself to see what you thought your steady state was, and then a week later you were in complete baggage, really dehydrated doing a test, you could trick yourself into thinking that you were just way worse, sort of thing, or like that sort of mentality.
But the same thing, like if you're trying to track your like heart rate, your resting heart rate every single day, it can sometimes scare you when you, like say you're sitting at 35 one day and then the next day it's at 39.
Yeah, ignorance
like,
could be bliss, when you're on the ergo. If you feel okay, your feeling is probably.
I think that is a big thing about it. Ignorance is.
Ignorance, like because if you feel okay, chances are like you're at the right intensity. If you feel absolute baggage on the ergo, then you're going to be probably working too hard.
But you do need to go.
You have to find. Yeah, exactly. It's quite a hard line to like find, isn't it?
Comes with experience.
Richard's just thinking, I've got a moustache. I can't think of anything.
No, I think it depends on volume. Like before we all started running at Brooks or running at Leander, we were only doing like a few sessions a week, weren't we? And you could afford to put yourself in the bin every session. Whereas now we're training 2 or 3 times a day. You've got to have your foot off the gas a little bit so that you can do all the sessions. Otherwise, it's going to go wrong.
Yeah, in the bin over a long period of time.
Because that's what really happened with me when I joined the team. I was like, I'm going to hit this split, but I wasn't used to doing a million K a week.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, I can survive for a few months, but then eventually it was like, oh no more. So all three are kind of going on the same path of don't use heart rate much. I've been.
We are all from Brooks as well. Where we know
these guys are all from Brooks. So I've been trying to use. So at university in America, there was no heart rate, and it was just go really hard, similar to the guys from Brooks. And now I've been trying to use the heart rate more to gauge, like what Ed was saying, gauge how I'm feeling. So sometimes when you feel really bad and your heart rate just starts to climb, maybe that's time, like James was saying, to back off a little bit. But other times, the splits can be coming easily, so then your heart rate isn't necessarily a good gauge. But I think it is a very individual thing. As you can see, all 4 of us have a different sort of opinion. So you should really try and figure out what's best for you, whether it is sticking to the heart rate, whether it's sticking to the split. But definitely speak to your coaches, figure out what does work for you, and then work from there. I think heart rate training really is one part of a picture, one part of your picture. So you can have heart rate, level of perceived exertion, you can look at the split, how you feel in that day, maybe what you've done the day before, or what you've got coming up later on. But all of these things all apply, and hopefully that helped a little bit. Let me know in the comments below what you think of heart rate training, whether it's a be all and end all, or maybe a bit of leeway either way, or maybe just no heart rate training at all. But now, maybe another ergo, maybe some more training, maybe we'll go home. But I'll talk to you about the testing we did today later on. And we've made it outside of the club for another day. Pretty good day today, shorter day, a little bit of a half day. We had the step test this morning and we discussed heart rate training, and like we said, it's very, very individual and it can really apply. It's really one part of the picture. So I really recommend checking out heart rate training in general to see how it works for you. But unfortunately I can't say do training at 150 heart rate and then you'll be great, because some people vary all over the place. My heart rate specifically at UT2 is a bit lower than others, and some of the guys at the club train a bit higher, but that is because their bodies are their bodies. They are not my bodies, if that makes any sense. And I'm going to talk about the step test as well in a second. I'm just going to put the camera down. And step test. What is a step test? Well, it's another way of gauging how you work and how your level of intensities that you should be training at, like heart rate training. So what happens is you perform a given split, given rate for a given period of time, and then you take your blood lactate level via my ear. There's different ways of doing that. You get a lactic acid level and then repeat for a certain amount of time, for certain rates and certain splits. This information, combined with your heart rate, combined with a level of perceived exertion, can give you a more accurate insight into what your body is good at. It gives you a more accurate insight into the intensity levels that your body is used to and where your intensity levels should be training for certain targets. So for us, we use the phrases UT1, UT2, AT, etc. UT2 is sort of your steady state sort of stuff. You go into UT3, that's like very light stuff, and then UT1 is, how do I describe it? So UT2 is steady state, UT1's a bit harder, and then you keep going up the scale from there. But kind of depends where you are. There's loads of different ways of measuring or giving certain bands to those effort levels. When I was at university, we used level 1 to 5. I know people use letters as well, and it's every team uses different, or everybody uses different sort of levels, but they all mean the same thing. You have like a steady state level, a very high intensity level, and a low intensity level, and then you work in from there. But the step test gives you a idea of where you should be sitting for given workouts. So if I'm going to do a long ergo, I know roughly where I should be sitting, what split that is, what heart rate that should be, etc. But like I talked about heart rate being one part of the picture, the step test is another part of the picture. So today, my step test could mean my UT2 is 148. I could do a step test tomorrow and get different data that suggests my heart rate, my split should be 149. So it really kind of depends on a lot of different things, like current fatigue level, what you've done the morning before, what you've eaten perhaps. Maybe you've not eaten in a while, because for lactic acid levels, if your lactic acid level is very low, it hopefully will be because you're very fit and you're able to deal with the training, but sometimes it can mean that you're overtrained and your body is struggling to produce enough, you've not got enough glycogen stores in your body, so you can't really produce lactic acid, and therefore the lactate levels are lower. But that's a whole nother story. And of course, not everyone can get lactic acid level testing after an erg. So my recommendations, my top 3 recommendations for heart rate training and training for you. If you're going to use heart rate training, only specifically, you have to remember that it isn't the be all and end all. So what I mean by that is sometimes your heart rate will drift. Some days it might go a bit higher, maybe 5 beats higher than yesterday, or even 5 beats lower. Sticking to a specific number can have detrimental effects, but that goes on the same side. Sticking to a specific number on the speed side can have effects that may not work either, so it's a bit difficult. So that's number 1 if you're going to stick to heart rate training. 2, listen to your body. So yeah, sure, you can go out and your heart rate is at a good level and your split's at a good level, but if you're feeling terrible, it can be quite difficult to say that's a good thing to do. But if you're feeling good, then maybe you can step on. So that's number 2, listening to your body. And number 3, painting your own individual picture. So it's figuring out what works best for you, whether that is a heart rate level, whether if you can get the opportunity to do the lactic acid testing, that'd be really good. And there's loads of other ways of testing your individual exertion levels. Just the level of perceived exertion is just a very, very simple one. So you can give yourself a level between 1 and 10 of where you feel that workout was. So 3 points: heart rate training, not the be all and end all, but part of the picture. 2, listening to your body so you know where you're at, and it's not necessarily I have to go at this split or I have to go at this heart rate. There has to be a little bit of leeway. And 3, getting the picture for you correct, and that can take time. That isn't just an immediate thing. Like I did the step test today, that's a specific little bit of paint. If we're painting by numbers and there's 100 numbers in there, the step test may cover 5 to 10 numbers, heart rate may cover 5 to 10 numbers, and there's loads of different things in there. But those other things are for another video. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. A lot of discussion, a little bit of candid discussion with the lads. Let me know in the comments below if you appreciate that. And heart rate training is a big thing because everyone can do that. The lactic acid testing, not everyone can do that, but the heart rate training, you just need the heart rate belts are relatively inexpensive. You can get one for about £20 and it can connect to the monitor and the erg, or you can get a watch which is reasonably cheap too, but of course not everyone has access to those. But like I said, biggest thing to take away is one part of the picture. And as always, Yam Squad, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, hit that like button, and have a good one.